Hey everybody, Bob here, wrenching with Bob. Got my shirt to prove it. Wife's been duding me out with blingy marketing stuff. So I got myself a hat and some shirts and a sweatshirt and stuff like that. So anyway, so today on the F850GS, I'm gonna do sprockets and chain. So first up, removal. I'll remove the plates off the side and get down to the chain to take off the rear wheel and take the sprocket off the sprocket carrier. So we'll do that first. What we've got here in terms of what I purchased is a 525 chain, and in my case this is 122 links. I did go with the factory settings for sprockets. So this is a JT this is a JT sprocket that's 17 teeth for the front, and for the rear it's a 44 tooth JT as well. And then on the DID chain, I did go with the gold, which cost a little bit more, and I did go with the 1000cc rating instead of the 900cc rating. So not quite heavy duty, but stronger duty than the standard kind of a thing. But I had some trouble finding places to get chain and sprockets from sort of typical places like Cycle Gear and whatever. So anyway. So I found a couple places that kind of let you do a real quick drop-down menu kind of thing to pick the year of your bike and make and model and that kind of stuff, and they'll actually provide you with sort of the base package for chain and sprockets as a set, which makes it cheaper for you and gives you a better sense that you're actually going to get what you're supposed to get for your bike, or at least it did for me, so that was helpful. And then they give you some options to upgrade things to a higher quality or tougher chain or whatever, right? So I actually did do a little bit of that. I think the base package for this thing was $180, and I spent another $40 on upgrading the chain to a heavier duty chain and to the gold plating color on the outside, which I like, and was super happy with the final $220 plus shipping and handling and whatever it was. So pretty happy with that. But basically we're going to wind up taking off these covers here to get to the front sprocket, which is here at my finger. We're going to wind up taking this this shield off here, which will give us full access to the chain, and then we'll also have to take the rear wheel off and everything to get to the sprocket carrier and to remove the actual sprocket. And get the new one on there. So that'll be the task today. And so with the start of every new adventure and something to fix, there's always a little bit of this needed. Put this in the super duper awesome cooler. Alright, let the work begin. So there was a delay of game because I didn't have a T60. Sigh. That is a swing arm bolt, and that guy is a T60. So make sure you got a T60. I've got to get this guy disconnected. So it is my understanding that I can. My goal here is to pull out the circlip up here and maybe down there. If I just do the bottom one, then I can, in theory, put this whole thing up here. So I'm going to take off the electrical connector, which has a little clip. Alright, so this connector, I believe to have a safety like this, so you got to pry that little whitish, almost glow-in-the-dark color dude up. Yeah, so once the white connector's up, and you can push, you can squeeze that white connector inward towards the connector, and that'll release the little clamp that's up there. So that frees that. Now if I can free the bottom, then I can flip the shifter, the quick shifter piece out. Ouch. So this is probably worth looking at here. So down here is the circlip. It's got this little loop on it so you can catch it, and basically you're going to push it away. So you're going to push it away from the shaft like this, and I'm going to want to catch that before it becomes a flying object. So I have my finger behind it, and then push that guy off of there. Okay, so that's now off, and you rotate it around and you lift it, and the darn thing is it's a circlip of sorts, but this part is the part that I was pushing around the edge, and once it pops off of there, then this part is secured down in a hole. There is a hole, I swear, down there at the tip of my fingernail, down at the bottom of the ball. So you're going to want to put that guy in there, and then once it's down, then you rotate it around to put it back together. And while some things are aluminum, there's a whole lot of them that are metal, and these little trays that have a big magnet on the back of them are worth their weight in gold. Alright, with that out, I should be able to pull the bottom off. There goes the bottom. So now the lever is movable, so it can be out of my way to get to these bolts. And this dude, I could take the circlip and everything off the top as well, but if it'll just be happy to hang out like that, then I'm happy as well. This plastic piece here has to come off, and there's a little tab here that it sits on. So this is a T30. So I'm going to give it a tug up here, and that's going to release the bottom part. So you can see in here, you can see this tab, where this metal tab sits, right? It sits in here. So the T30's there. I'm going to leave that in the plastic piece. Let's see if we can get that T60 squared first. Okay, with that T60 out, we got to get down here. Not sure if that's actually visible from that angle. But we got to get this guy out. So this is a, make sure I'm saying the right numbers. This is a T50 here, and this one back here is also a T50. Yep, and the one that's behind the gear shift lever is T50. And just get these guys loosened a little bit. And these guys are smaller. Alright, point of note. So the two left bolts, these two here, these are identical. This bolt that is in the bottom right corner, this one is not identical. What do we got left here? We got two of these, I think, 40s. Let's check. Yep, these are T40s. We'll check to see if these are also the same or not. So these look to be identical. These top two here, they're T40s. They seem to be the same. And now I'm ready to pull this side piece off. Alright, so all this is going to come off. You got a shifter, you got your pedal, and you got this plastic piece in the back. It'll all come off. So the other thing that was wanting to come off was this piece here. Right, this was actually wanting to find its way loose like this. I would prefer it doesn't unless I discover that it's damaged. It's definitely wearing. Anyway, I'll have to inspect this after I get the chain off. But alright, next up we're going to get rid of this chain guard here so we can get a full look at the chain. So the only tricky part here is this one is a press fit rivet, where the center piece right here is actually driven into it after the fact in order to splay the legs of the rivet that's in there. And I saw somebody online who was successful in just literally pulling this out, that it slid past everything without trouble, and then you can shove the pin out and get to it for putting it back together. The only other way is to shove this pin through, and then it winds up back here somewhere, and it's a pain in the butt to get to. So I'm going to try and avoid that trouble by doing a little prying this way. And it worked. Alright, so this is that little press rivet I was talking about. Right, so it's got a center, there's a center piece to it. It's got to get pushed back out for reinstallation. So just taking a little spike here and pushing that guy out lets those legs get back to a smaller opening so it can go back through there. So I'll just put that in there with my other stuff. So that one's out, and now we've got two, what I believe to be, let's just check, two T30s. So there's a T30 back here that will do, and then there's one hanging out up here, a little tougher to get to. Not terrible, but not fun. I might have to do this with a wrench instead of this. Yeah, I think I'll have to get a wrench in there. And in this case, I'm just going to stick the T30 back in its home so I don't lose it. Alright, chain protector's off. And again, I'm going to put that T30 back in its home. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to take the pinion bolt off of here. So this is a 17 millimeter bolt right here. Ah yes, and we're in neutral. So we've got to get down to first, which fortunately I left this on so I can do that. Now I'm in first. Alright, so just pressing down on the brake lever. There's a couple things to note about this bolt that's coming out though. So the bolt's normal, nothing special there, but there are two bits here. These are two washers, and they are not regular old washers. So the washer that's closest to the head is actually a shoulder washer, so there's a shoulder here in addition to the washer. So the washer goes on flush to the head of the bolt, and then where that shoulder is where this one rests in the shoulder. So when this is all said and done, it shouldn't sit like this and get clamped down, right? It should sit like this and get clamped down. And the last item of note is that this washer is actually conic shaped, so you want basically you want this thing to be sort of cupped inward, because it's gonna squeeze that thing like a spring. So the cone on this is that direction, the direction of my finger, and so that cone goes outward towards the outside of the bolt, sits on the shoulder, and then goes in. Right? So that's the order of operations and the way that's supposed to work. Here goes the fun. All right, there it is. So there's our front sprocket. I don't know how well you can see this, but if you look at the teeth, right, the teeth don't look like they stand straight up anymore. They look rolled over because the torque has consistently been digging into this part of the chain, which makes it look like a wave on the other side of it, which is actually the unmodified part. It's the part that's on this back edge that winds up getting dug in because it's driving in that direction. This rubber part here that was wanting to come off, this is a they call it chain drop protection or chain break protection, and so this is all one piece that comes up through here, and we're looking for it to be significantly worn. It does have grooves in it that I can detect that are, I don't know, fairly significant. I'm not terribly excited about changing mine out. You can do some cleanup in there. See that? All this is pretty gunky. Since it has Alright, so I've done a video on taking the rear wheel off before, but we'll kind of hustle through this as well. So the rear axle main bolt is a 34 millimeter. So you got the nut, and you got a big old honking washer. Put those down there. So now I'll remove the axle. Just a couple light taps. Nothing earth-shattering. No kabooms. Take a little weight off with your feet. And yank the monstrous axle. So the only other trickiness is getting this guy out, because this here, the calipers, right, are pinned between the swing arm and the wheel. So there's a little finagling to be done to get the wheel free. So the trick I just did on the other side is, this is the part that gets clamped on the inside edge of the swing arm. It goes like this, axle goes through it like this. That I actually just pulled this off the other side once I had the wheel tip far enough, and this gives me an extra, half an inch or more of play, which is exactly what you need to get this job done. Next thing on track here is to remove the sprocket from the sprocket carrier, and this is a removable piece. You see me lifting this out. Alright, this whole piece lifts out. This is the so-called cush drive, these rubber dampers, and so if you need to, you can certainly remove this. I shouldn't need to. The idea here is to remove these 5 bolts, take the sprocket off, put the new sprocket on, put the bolts back on. That's it. Rear sprocket's done. They're 17 millimeters, and they are tightened quite tightly. In fact, I probably could have done myself some favors to have loosened these bolts while it was still connected to the bike. Okay, there's my sprocket.